What is gravy, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. PS5 stock is finally at a decent level, and many people will actually be getting their hands on the system. So I put together a list of fantastic games that you should be completing on your new console. What better way to kick off a new generation than with a stunning remake of a PS3 game? Obviously, From Software's titles have soared in popularity over the last few years with the likes of Sekiro and Elden Ring, so the fact that you can go back to arguably the game that started it all without having to deal with old hardware is a no-brainer. Now, while the perceived difficulty of these games does have a tendency to put people off, Demon's Souls is by far the easiest of the bunch, at least in my opinion. It has a completely separate hub world similar to Elden Ring, but is nowhere near as intimidating, and once you get to grips with the combat, which again is probably the easiest in the series, you'll be flying. The only downside to this is it has one of the most annoyingly obtuse mechanics in any game I've ever played: tendency. If you are willing to give this game the old college try, I implore you to look into this before you get started, as it can very quickly ruin your day without you even realising it. For the platinum, you'll need to complete every level, acquire every ring and spell in the game, which will take a couple of playthroughs, as well as complete some really fun challenges during certain boss fights. There's a trophy for defeating the Tower Knight, one of the earlier bosses in the game, without taking out any of his little archer buddies. And for me, these were by far and away the most fun trophies to go for. If you were at all clued in on the launch of the next generation, you will undoubtedly have seen footage of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and heard people claiming it's the best thing since sliced bread's distant cousin. And while I'm not quite on that level, it is still a phenomenal game. A staple series on PlayStation for the longest time, this newest installment takes all of the zany mascot platforming to a new level by adding in a whole new duo of characters for you to fall in love with. And I mean, the gameplay is sublime, but would you really expect anything else? I know I've spoken in the past about my less than enthusiastic views on the game's trophies, and I stand by that. I think they could have done a lot more with them, but it is still an incredibly fun game to complete, and one that should be right up there on the list of every trophy hunter when they boot up their new machine. Okay, this next entry is probably the most subjective out of the bunch, but I absolutely adored A Plague Tale Requiem, so I'm definitely going to recommend it. This game took me on a rollercoaster of emotions throughout its relatively succinct runtime, with some of the most gorgeous settings I've ever walked around in. Sure, there's a horde of plague-ridden rats floating around the place, but you can't always have everything. For those of you who played its predecessor, you'll likely know what to expect when it comes to the gameplay, but Requiem does actually add quite a lot in my opinion. You now have an unlimited supply of rocks to sling at people, so you're never truly helpless, and Amicia is significantly more capable in combat, largely due to the addition of an actual weapon. It's a crossbow, it's badass. It also revamps the skill system to upgrade naturally depending on how you play through the game, and while this does mean you might have to play the game in a slightly different way than you would typically want to, it does add an extra level of realism. Amicia goes full on Ellie from The Last of Us, she unlocks more aggressive skills. It just makes sense. The Platinum will require at least a partial second playthrough in order to upgrade everything, but this means you might as well do a blind playthrough first and use the second to also clean up any missing collectibles. Seriously, I cannot recommend this game enough. Just make sure you've played the first one as well, otherwise a lot of this isn't going to make a lick of sense. Right, it's divisive entry time now, so strap yourselves in. If by some miracle of fate you have yet to play The Last of Us, firstly, can we please swap places? I really want to go through this game again from scratch. But secondly, what the hell? Easily one of the most compelling video game narratives out there, and quickly becoming one of the most popular TV shows of the year, this game is a must-play for any PlayStation owner. And if you have the chance to experience it for the first time in this, for want of a better word, immaculate remake, then you definitely should. While obviously the price of this game was and continues to be a point of contention for many, I personally feel that the overhaul in visuals and animation make a lot of difference. So much so that I bought it at launch because I couldn't hold in my excitement. On top of that, the platinum for the game has been made significantly easier, with the difficulty trophies being removed and replaced with some cheeky little miscellaneous ones, plus having the DLC Left Behind rolled in. Honestly, I just adore this game with all of my being, it's not even funny. You do still need to acquire all the collectibles in the game, but this can all be done in chapter select once you've finished, so you don't even need to use a guide on your playthrough, just enjoy it. Second to last entry now, and I have to admit, I've cheated with this one. Spider-Man 2 isn't even out yet. In fact, as of making this video, there's not been an official release date announced. But I think we can all safely agree that if the 2018 game is anything to go by, we're in for one hell of a time. Also, the previous two games both came to PS4, and I want to talk about Spider-Man, so yeah. The game is presumably going to take place after the events of Miles Morales in a New York where there's two web slingers zipping about, and the possibilities that this provides are too good to ignore. I've seen many speculating that the game will feature character switching in a similar vein to GTA 5, where you'll be able to swap between the two protagonists at will, and if so, being able to jump from one to the other, maybe even mid-swing, and continue beating up thugs would be mind-blowing. Not to mention the fact that they are introducing Venom into the mix. And call me crazy, but if we get the chance to play as him, I may actually have to change my pants. As far as trophies go, we obviously haven't seen any sort of list yet, but going off the other games, I reckon there's going to be a decent amount of map clearing, some pretty fun combat trophies, with a few little Easter eggs thrown in as the pièce de résistance, coupled with a bunch of story trophies of course. So while you won't be able to go for this one right out of the gate, it should absolutely be on your radar as one to platinum when the time comes. But there is one platinum trophy that should be the first stop for anyone getting this console for the first time. Yes, I couldn't make this video without mentioning Astro's Playroom, a game that is not only an incredible platformer, but is actually bundled in with every PS5 that Sony makes. Has the game been talked about enough on the channel? Yes. Is that going to stop me from recommending it all over again? Absolutely not. This little platformer is so incredibly charming and so steeped in PlayStation history and Easter eggs that it just makes you happy, even when you're raging during the speedruns like I do. Simply explore all the levels and collect all the collectibles and you're basically done. It's as simple as that. Honestly, I just hope we get more Astrobot games in the future. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, and if you're new, consider subscribing. I'm currently working my way through a Platinum Trophy A to Z, so why not catch up on the latest video from that by clicking right here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I shall catch you all next time.